Hello, everybody.
Hi.
Hello.
We'll be the Wrestling Pals talking about wrestling.
I don't like wrestling and I don't know who you people are.
Oh,
I just came in to get a drink and use the bathroom.
not lucky that all those are free.
Cool. No, I talk about wrestling a lot.
I'll introduce myself. My name is Ray Garner. I am a lifelong wrestling fan from back when I was a little kid and got into it watching it on Channel 11, Channel 39 with my grandpa, and have been into it my whole life. And we'll get into why we're doing today's topic first, but let's let the other people introduce themselves.
My name is April Garner, and I'm also a longtime wrestling fan. I started watching wrestling probably when I was a toddler with my dad, and I've just loved it ever since then.
I'm John Morgan Neal, or AKA JM Punk, and I have been watching wrestling since I was a little boy, and I can actually date that to when I was in kindergarten because we moved. Because my mom married a guy, and me and my stepbrother, we named our German Shepherd Fritz.
Oh,
Fritz
very
Von Erich.
cool.
So it's been a long time. And I also have been doing podcasts for wrestling. I have a wrestling website called the Pro Wrestling Roundtable, and which was the name of the old podcast, and a new podcast called Wrestle-Lots. So go check that out too. But this is going to be a whole lot of fun. I've talked a whole lot of wrestling with this guy, and I've begun to start talking a whole lot of wrestling with this gal, and it's a lot of fun. And we thought we'd bring you into the party.
That's right. And today's subject, because as you might can tell from my shirt, because we just recently went to the TNA live event in Garland, Texas, Genesis. It's my fourth TNA live event. It's her second. I don't think, have you been to a TNA live event?
I have never been to a TNA live event.
Okay. But the main point of our subject is kind of the differences between watching wrestling on TV and actually seeing it at a live event, and why, if you have never seen wrestling at a live event, whether it's your local wrestling or WrestleMania and anything in between, you need to go do it. You owe it to yourself if you're a wrestling fan to see wrestling live and in person. And my first oldest event I can remember going to is the Sportatorium. Actually, I correct myself. That's the first one I drove to.
Right.
I rode my bike to a world-class event in Howell, Texas to watch the Von Erichs at the Howell football stadium when I grew up at. And got it free for helping set up the chairs.
And that's the one that is on YouTube.
It is on YouTube.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, from the lovely camera angle of the press box from the
Yes.
football field.
Yes.
So details a little fuzzy.
It's history.
It's history.
Captured.
Yes, you found that one.
I did find that one. Yeah.
Right.
And also another really great one that we both attended live together at the Sportatorium, of course, was the one that the main event was Jerry Lawler defending the USWA world title. I think that's what they're calling it at that time.
Yeah, it was the USA,
Yeah.
or USWA.
USWA world title, where world class in Memphis had merged and this and the other, and Terry Gordy was going after it, and that is on YouTube too, but I still can't find this. I keep looking and I can't find this, but that's when he got to meet Jerry, went to the ring with him, and held the title and all that. And
Got a Polaroid picture with Jerry Lawler for $5. And probably the great thing about that was, obviously against Terry Gordy at that point in time, Terry Gordy was a babyface. Jerry was the bad guy. Then he does this whole deal to get people to come into the ring, pay him $5 to get their Polaroid with him. And, we do that, and it's a pretty good line of people.
Mm-hmm.
Then he takes the $5 and holds it up and just calls us all suckers. Easiest money he's ever made.
Great heel. Great heel. And here's the thing. You probably said to yourself, well, you went with him. Why didn't you pay the $5 to get in there? I didn't have the $5.
So you weren't the sucker then?
I
like
wasn't
I
the
was.
sucker. Here's one thing I knew. I've always wanted to meet Terry Gordy,
Mhm.
but I didn't look for him because I'm afraid of it. Even if he's a bad guy.
That-
I just will enjoy, did enjoy Terry from afar, but now unfortunately he's too far gone.
So, what was your first live event that you can recall?
First live event I can recall was in my hometown, Wolf City, Texas, and it was the Von Erichs, which
We're getting
got
a
me
theme going
there.
here.
Huh?
Got a theme going here.
Yes, which got me there. There was others there that I can recall. The Missing Link was there. Of course, I remembered him because I was scared to death
Oh,
of him.
how you gonna forget the Missing Link? I mean,
Yeah. But that was my first live event.
that kind of ties into our little private conversation in the car over there about the look,
Yes.
because no one's going to forget the Missing Link.
That's
No.
right.
No.
My first one actually don't have a strong memory of it, but I know it was there, but it was in Denison, at some place in Denison. I don't know exactly what building it was.
May not even stand anymore.
It may not, might have been one of the old schools, for all I know. But I know I went. It was very little, very
Mhm.
little. That's why I can't remember very well. And I'm sure my dad took me because when I was over there or whatever. So that's the earliest one, and that's very, very early. And I just know, only thing I know for sure, because I could just assume this even if I don't remember it, Fritz was there. Fritz Von Erich, which that ties the whole thing together with
Yep.
Von Erich. But the one I do have a memory of, and I want to share on the video, I've said to many other people all the time, my favorite early live event that I went to was at Sadler and South Main High School.
I remember the story.
And at that time, me and my buddy Daryl, we went. I went with his family, his grandmother and his mom and this that, and the other. And we were going to be, we're going to go and say, we're going to root for the bad guys, and we're going to go and try to get autographs from the bad guy. And one of the main bad guys at that time that was feuding with the Von Erichs was a guy named Killer Karl Krupp, who had this whole German Nazi gimmick with monocle and everything and a swagger stick. And he swapped us aside, and he didn't really hit Daryl, but he brushed Daryl with that, and he went and whined to his grandmother about it. And so when Karl Krupp came into the match, now he was fighting Alberto Madrid. Remember him? Great Mexican wrestler, Texan Mexican wrestler. And so they're doing the introductions, and old David Manny's in there doing his thing, and you know how in high school, in the junior high center, they have those little Coca-Cola paper cups, and they have that like real jagged ice that's in them. She still had ice that she was eating on, so on and so forth. His grandmother, Daryl's grandmother, and she chucks a piece of that ice at Killer Karl Krupp. And all we're doing, because it's in a gymnasium, and so the light captures that piece of ice, and it just glinted perfect in art, and it hit Karl Krupp's monocle, and then you saw the monocle go woo in the light, and that's why. And this is really the theme of what we're talking about. Nothing beats live wrestling. Nothing.
That's right.
And and going with that theme, like I said, if you haven't seen them live, it's a whole different experience. And we just saw TNA Genesis, as we were mentioning. We got to see all the people we get to see on NXT Weekly show up. Unfortunately, we don't have the TNA streaming service at this time. We may add it. It's one we've talked about doing. But we have watched them on YouTube and other things when we can catch them. But it's just so great getting to see someone that you're a big fan of. Like for myself, this is the first time I got to see Jordan Grace live and in person. And, she's such a great female wrestler. She's such a powerhouse. And if you've been following her career, it's such a transformation from when she started to where she's at now. And now she's on her way to either NXT or WWE. Probably we'll figure that out after the Royal Rumble, where she is going to probably be in the Royal Rumble and do quite well.
I'd be willing to bet money on it if I had any.
Yeah.
Yes.
But also, getting to see the return of Tessa Blanchard in the ring. I got to see her in the intergender match at Slammiversary 17. And that was she didn't win, but she put forth a great effort. And then after the show, we had actually paid for the meet and greet with the Hardy Boys and the at that point in time now the new TNA World Champion Joe Hendrick. So there's that great moment of the two of us getting to stand there with the Hardy Boys while we held the TNA Tag Championships, and of course got our photos with them. And she got the autograph from Joe. And while we were standing in line, the world's strongest man, Mark Henry, set up a little meet and greet and a photo op situation.
Somebody's going to get the.
And she held our place in line for the Hardy Boys while I went and got to meet him. And it's little things like that. Like, that was not advertised. That was not something that was planned by TNA or something. It's something that he did kind of on his own, and that's a great moment. Cause, I mean, to me, no knocking on Hardy Boys, because they're great. They're a legendary tag team, but it's Mark Henry.
And he's Texan.
And he's Texan, yes. We've also got to see, I got to see Tessa Blanchard, and because she was doing a meet and greet, and the Rascals were out there doing a meet and greet. And, I got to fist bump them as they were walking by, heading out when theirs was done, while we were still in line for the Hardy, because the Hardy's line was insane. But also, I got to spend a whole bunch of time talking to people in front of me and behind me about their experiences wrestling. And meeting the other fans and getting to hang out with people that have your same prerogative, or maybe in a different prerogative about wrestling.
Yeah, it's something akin to, as we're also big comic book fans and science fiction fans and that sort of so forth. That's what's so great about conventions.
Mm-hmm.
You get to meet some of the people that make this stuff or act in or write stuff or whatever, and the connection with other fans. Mm-hmm. The difference, though, with a wrestling show is that you also get to see performances of the people who wrestle are, to me, the best athletes, the best performers, the best everything in the world, because what they do is incredibly hard to do it correctly, and most of them do. And I want you to tell the story of, talk about the fan connections, so on and so forth, about that people that were right in front of you and what happened with Ryan Nemeth. Ryan Nemeth, Nick Nemeth's brother, was there, and he was sitting on the front row.
Oh, yes.
Because he was there for a reason, because he was going to get involved in the match, of course, and so on and so forth. And then he had a little interaction with the little boy in the front row.
So there was this father and his 7-year-old son, and the father didn't know who Ron was, so he asked Ray who he was, because Ron's sitting there and he has this piece of paper.
This ticket.
It was printed on. It wasn't like a blank piece of paper, but you knew it wasn't a ticket. But he's saying, "I've got my ticket. I've got my ticket." Because
the show was sold out. They made a big deal that it's sold out. This is a heel who says he's got a ticket because he just wants to be there where he can help his brother win the title.
But all they did was come down and put a chair there, for the whole thing.
For the show.
Yeah. And so the son, he knows, I think, more about what's going on than the father did. So the son is like, I want to go say something to him. He kind of bowed up, and the father was like, no, And so then we didn't hear what Ryan...
I saw Ryan say something, but I couldn't hear over the crowd what he said.
Yeah, we didn't hear what he said to the little boy, but he did say something probably in character, but out of line in a normal circumstance. Okay.
So if it had been actually just another fan, he shouldn't have said what he said, but because he is a heel character.
Yes. So the father was like, you shouldn't say that to my son. He's 7 years old. and he's getting a little agitated that Ron said something, and so he kind of reiterates it again. Well, Ron apologized.
Yeah, when the camera was off him, he leaned over and said, I could hear this part. Hey, it's just part of the show, and leaned back
Yeah.
and winked over at him to try to defuse the situation.
And don't get it wrong. There are some very old timers, Jim Cornette, who wouldn't like that, but
Yeah.
I think it's okay because.
But he did,
Yeah.
try to apologize, and he was trying to concentrate on, what was going on out there, and so then the father decides to start telling his son, you should be the bigger person and let things go. And how about we just ask him to take a picture with you? Now, we all know that he's a heel. He's in character. He's waiting to go out there.
Yeah, he can't be
So
distracted too much. He's got
this is not a good idea.
No.
And but you can't. I mean, I'm not going to interrupt him and tell him anything. And so whenever he asked Ron about taking the picture, he tried to be really nice about it, and he just looked at him and he said, "I'm sorry, I can't. I just can't." And the father seemed to be a little offended by that.
Oh, he was a lot offended. I don't think you heard him when he turned around, basically saying, told me something about it. He goes, I'm about ready to reach over here and just deck this guy.
Oh, okay, that's right. He did say that.
And I just said, that's really not a great idea.
That's not going to go over well.
No.
That's going to go bad for you.
No, but it wasn't minutes later. He was already out there, doing his part.
Trying to interfere in the match. And then, of course, barreling through there, and just a few seconds later, we had JBL come barreling through.
Yes.
And for the spot with JBL in the
Right in
show.
front of you and you. But
Yep.
Yes. But even whenever JBL was coming back out, the father jumped up out of his seat and ran kind of like in front of JBL. He was constantly trying to kind of get in the way a little bit.
And that is the thing, because every round of people come there, and obviously the father wasn't the biggest wrestling fan, not particularly knowledgeable, this, that, and the other. The kid knew more than him. But here's why it's important, especially on that level, because that kid ain't forgetting none of that.
Oh no!
He realized, okay, I'm sitting there, and he kind of was told the guy was part of the show, but then he did get in part of the show in the main event. So that little moment is going to be, oh boy, okay, I was part of that in a way, and that's the magic.
And that's things like, what I have to say, like in local wrestling, one of my favorite deals was one of the local shows we used to go to regularly before I started having to do tournaments on Friday nights. We weren't able to go to them anymore. There is an elderly couple that is always there, and they yell at the heels. They scream at the heels, and most of the heels who have worked there a lot know that they're there, and they holler back at them. And the older gentleman, he will get so mad, he literally will turn red in anger and yelling back at him and threatening them. Like, yeah, I'm going to come get you. And it's all part of the show, and he basically becomes part of the show because of the way the heels interact with him as they're, in the ring or in the middle of the match. And they've even, I remember one time they even had one of the baby faces held the heel out there, and he slapped him on the chest.
Yeah.
Gave him a chop, sort of.
Yeah.
And give a shout out. You're talking about Texas Home Pro. Right?
Yeah, Texas Home Pro.
It's Texas Home Pro. It's a local place. If you're here locally, go see them. They do good work. And speaking of that, because that kind of experience, again, is the only kind of place you can get it is live. And there you learn, because for this kid, that's what I was going to say about the kid. So kids, when they get into wrestling and they're first into wrestling, kayfabe is 100 alive. They don't know anything about it. And then, but you still, with these old shows, you find out it's still alive in the hearts of 40-year-old women or 50-year-old women for sure.
Yes.
Because they get after those heels like it's the most important thing, especially female heels.
Yep.
And they'll give them crap. And then, of course, but there, in the smaller shows, what I like is that there is that back and forth, between the wrestlers and the fans and the managers, particularly like our good friend Nigel. And that's my favorite part of wrestling. I'm really absolutely certain that's my favorite part. And for a long time, the bigger wrestling, because it's bigger and it's under control, and they've been the crowds further out and this and the other, under Vince's thing, and then even WCW this and the other. But we're moving back, and you got the fans closer, and you got interactions because, yes, okay, all over the world and in WWE itself and AEW this and the other, there are women who are better in ring people as far as doing moves and this, that, and the other, and they're very and talented and so on and so forth than Nia Jax is. Okay? Nia's very limited. She's big, this, that, and the other, so on and so forth, but she's good. I'm not saying she's bad. I'm just saying I acknowledge that some people will value some other that can do a lot more moves, this, that, and the other.
She's not flippy.
She's not flippy or flashy, but she works with the crowd. And that's why she's one of my absolute favorites, because she always jaw jacks with the crowd. Yeah. And to me, again, that's my favorite thing.
There is a.
She's also very funny.
There's a manager in the King of Sports.
Yes.
They would go to. I think it's the Heart Foundation.
Yeah.
Is it the Heart?
No, they don't use the Heart. It's Heart something, but it's not Foundation.
And it's led by Teddy Hart, right? Is it led by Teddy Hart?
I can't remember his name now. I'm drawing a blank here. Now that I'm on the spot, I can't pull that out of my brain.
I know.
More than likely.
But he's massively a heel, and he loves to interact with the crowd, and I love whenever he interacts with me. I love to yell at him, and obviously it's all in good fun.
Well, when I would go to the Texas Pro with you guys, and so forth, I loved the exchange between Nigel Rabbit, the manager I was talking about, and your niece.
Yes.
That right there, I will pay money for that alone. For all the rest of it, it's fine, but that alone was the most entertaining thing.
Yes.
And the thing is that they were friends. They became friends, and what she would do is lecture him that he shouldn't do the things that he done, and they shouldn't be like he is.
Yes.
Yeah, and she was at that point in time. She was probably what, 10?
Yeah.
Amazing.
That's just I can't get enough of that. That's great.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, is that you really can get that interaction, and you can get to be, regular viewers of people who may go on to be, some really big names. Like locally here, Texas Pro especially, we got to see a whole lot of Tim Storm.
Actually, at one point he was like part owner of it.
Oh, was he?
He was in the office or somewhere.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know he was in the office still. Yeah, but we got to see him win the NWA World Title against the unfortunately now passed Jack Sting, and and to go on to the Lightning One era with NWA, and doing the 10-pound of gold series, eventually dropping the title to Nick Aldis,
which was my favorite storyline of that time of all wrestling.
Yeah, and it's just it's really cool. Like we got to go to NWA 75 in St. Louis, and there was a match scheduled against him and Jack Stain, and I was really looking forward to it. And unfortunately, something went wrong very early in that match, and the match had to be called off because on I think it was a hip toss, if I remember. It might have been a body slam. Just something happened, and I mean, it just basically we had to end the match for Tim's safety. But I love getting to see him perform, and the fact that I got to see him locally. I got to shake his hands. I've gotten pictures with him. My niece and nephew got pictures with him. You've gotten pictures with him.
Yeah, I met him, got a picture taken with him, and so I interviewed him on the old Pro Wrestling Roundtable. So yeah, Tim, I just love the fact that Tim went on to become all this and the other. And even though Jazz had been big, you just saw Jazz.
Yeah, Jazz the same night won the NWA World Title women's title and would go on to be one of, if not the longest reigning NWA women's champion. I can't remember because she holds one. It's like one of the top 3 or the top 1 or 2.
And while you didn't see her, I'm certain she was at Genesis, since she is big time backstage.
Oh yeah,
she's knockouts along with Gail Kim. You did get to see Gail for a moment. Right?
Yeah. Actually, I was going back through my mind before this. I've actually got to see Gail Kim wrestle twice at Slammiversaries. Neither one of which she won. She lost both those matches.
She didn't lose a lot. She was that little baby face underdog, you know. Because, I mean, good Lord, her biggest famous feud was with Kong. Yeah, Kong was way, way bigger than she was. That's the thing. I became a fan of Gail Kim because of that, because when she was in the WWE, she had this real big feud with, I always use her names. It was Victoria, because she always worries, and the TNA name sticks with me more. I don't know why. But anyway, she was Victoria, and she was bigger than Gail, and she had that move, Widow's Peak, and it just, I felt sympathy every time she got hit with that thing. But there was another I was going to bring up. You saw Nick Aldis as Magnus, didn't you?
Yes, he was at I think it was Slammiversary 10, if I remember right.
Yeah. So.
And got to see, we've got to see Marshall and Ross Von Erich. I don't even remember how many times we've seen them.
You've seen them in Texas Pro, you've seen them in TNA, you've seen them in
AEW.
In AEW.
No, it wasn't AEW, it was MWO. Or MLW, sorry.
MLW.
Wasn't there another local one, like close down?
We also saw them in Denton, but I can't remember the name of that one was when they had a show on Denton.
Talking about Kevin's sons.
Yeah.
Real good.
Actually, just recently, Ring of Honor champions. Yep.
Yeah. Actually, they were both tag teams there and 6-man.
I think so.
Because they were with Dustin.
Yeah.
Another Texan, Dustin Rose and Ronald Boys.
Which
I fully expect that they're going to all be involved in a bigger way in All In, which will be in Dallas.
Dallas, yep. Yeah, been in Arlington at the baseball stadium.
Yeah, it's the Rangers baseball stadium.
Yeah. But one of the things I was going to say, though, is that one of the reasons why I also recommend everybody goes to the local shows, and here's the thing, not everybody can afford to go to WWE's pay-per-views. Like even a Raw and SmackDown are higher price for almost any ticket compared to a TNA live event. WWE or AEW's events have gotten fairly expensive. But your local shows are $10 to $25 probably, maybe $50 if you're paying extra to be on the front row. And a lot of local shows have people who are former WWE or AEW or TNA stars that are currently not under contract, sometimes that they are under contract, that are making appearances, so you can see a big name person in a small venue, so you can really get up close and get to see them really perform. But the local guys and gals who are doing this, I mean, there used to be the old video disclaimer at the beginning of all the WWE deals about don't try this at home, because you have torn pec muscles and broken bones and multiple knee and shoulder surgeries and back surgeries and stuff. Those are all guys and gals who are taking all these tremendous risks and making hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars a lot of times per year on these big companies. But these local people are doing it for maybe $50 a night and whatever they can make in merch. So just think about that. They're taking the same risk without any kind of insurance probably, and not a big paycheck. They're doing it because they love the sport. They love doing it, and they take some crazy risks. The joy, if you will, as a little kid of trying to figure out why when Shawn Michaels did his elbow drop off the top rope and hit somebody, it didn't hurt, but when he did it and missed him, it hurt like heck. So the before-mentioned show, I got to get in the ring. All of us kids did, and mess around the ring. Something you couldn't do nowadays for liability reasons, obviously. But back then, things were a little looser. So I climbed on the top ropes. I couldn't convince anybody to lay there and let me elbow drop them.
Yeah, I can't imagine why.
So I did the elbow drop
Cowards.
onto the mat. And it hurts. And that was 12-year-old me. 54-year-old me, I don't care if I was doing it on top of Bronson Reed, I'm probably not getting back up. He could probably pin me off of me doing an elbow drop.
Just full circle here. There are some 50-something years old out there who are doing it.
Yes.
So, crazy.
Tim Storm, who I mentioned earlier.
Storm, Jeff Jarrett. So
the Hardy Boys aren't very short
the Hardy's pretty close.
short of 50.
So to piggyback off of that, so yeah, find you a local show. There's always something. There's thousands of them across the country, many in the local area. Go find one, go to it, and carry along a little extra money because you're going to have enough extra money. You can get a hot dog or some popcorn. It's not going to cost you hardly anything. The tickets are very cheap. But carry a little extra money, and if you are watching some talent and they really catch your eye, or they really impress you, or you really like them, find them if they're set up selling merch, this, that, and the other, and buy a T-shirt, buy a hat, do something because
pay for an autograph.
Yeah, because these guys and girls are not making any money doing this yet, and that's the thing about wrestling is that you do it because you love it. The ones that are really into it, and the ones that go on, and they're going. If they're good enough and they don't get hurt, they'll eventually will get there. But right now, they're just doing it because you have to get the reps in. You have to do it to get good at it, and they're doing it because they love it. But they ain't getting rich, so just
and
help them.
Yeah, and to go off that one of our great moments was at a. Let's see, where was that at? It was in I was where the trade days are at. Let's see, I can't do that.
Oh, Canton.
Yeah, we were in Canton. We went down there and we got to see Thunder Rosa before anybody really knew who Thunder Rosa was. And I got a picture of you with Thunder Rosa. And she would go on very shortly. I mean, we're only talking a few months after that. She showed up in the NWA and went on to become the NWA Women's World Champion. Would move over to AEW, would become the AEW Women's World Champion. Currently is active in the AEW.
She also works as a Spanish commentator too.
Yeah, Spanish commentator. She did have her own local wrestling here. It was all female in Texas. Unfortunately, it's now defunct. Unfortunately, none of the shows were up here because it was based out of San Antonio. And for those of you who are not from Texas, San Antonio, if traffic works with you, is 5 hours from here. If it doesn't work with you, it is 7 hours, and it mostly doesn't work with you.
Some of you in the Midwest and some other in the East are going to be, why is he using miles as our time as because everybody else measures in miles? That's because it's just easier to do.
Yeah, how many hours it's going to take to get somewhere in Texas. But and we got to see just tons of great local people, and piggybacking off of going way back here, we were mentioning the fact that me and him got to watch Jerry Gordy wrestle Jerry Lawler.
You actually said Jerry Gordy.
Oh, Jerry Gordy versus Jerry Lawler. There you go. And that when I asked this beautiful woman for her hand in marriage, his daughter and that Miranda set up that moment where I got to get down on the knee and ask her for her hand in marriage in the middle of a ring here at Texoma Pro.
Very cool.
And that. So
it was the appropriate place for him to ask.
Yes, it was.
And I'm glad that a Gordy was involved in it. That's my family.
So wrestling runs through our bloods, and we really kind of wanted to do this to talk to people about shows. Do we want to actually do just a straight up review now of Genesis? That tag down? Or do we want to just talk about our favorite matches from Genesis? I know you documented down the cards, so we'd remember it all.
Before y'all do that, I'm going to put a button on the whole live experience and so forth. If you're old enough, you watch wrestling on Channel 11.
Locally, if you're in North Texas.
If you're in the North Texas area, you saw wrestling on Channel 11 for years and years and years and years and years. And they had a format like anything else. and he did it a couple times before that. But there was that one segment where he did the interviews on that back wall of wherever it was there inside Will Rogers Coliseum, and it was Mark Lawrence, and he was sat there with the mic, and then the heels would come on one side, and the baby faces would come on one side, and they had at one point they had KTVT real big behind us or somewhere. All that just to set up the field, but he always would emphasize that it's great that we're doing this on TV and you can see it so but come join us next Monday here at Will Rogers Coliseum, because there's nothing like seeing it live. So it's nothing new. It's always been that way. It always will be that way. Go see a show.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Well, I just wanted to make sure we mentioned, if you are local, there's Texoma Pro. If you're King of Sports is kind of
They kind of travel around the north and east Texas area doing local school shows for the most part.
It doesn't Texoma Pro still have sort of the one in Oklahoma too?
They do, but they actually use a different name to go to Oklahoma, and I can't remember it. I want to say it's like Red River Pro.
I think it's Red. I think Red River.
Yeah. But in Dallas, I do know of two.
And that's Southern Oklahoma.
In Dallas, I know of two, which is Soar Wrestling,
which we've been to a lot,
and VIP Wrestling.
Yes.
And there's a few down in Dallas, which is local enough. If some people can.
Well, that's what those two were.
Oh, those are Dallas. Okay.
Yes.
Cool. All right.
Yeah. Yes. Soar we've been to a lot. Unfortunately, despite the fact that Dallas Fort Worth doesn't sound that far from us, VIP Wrestling is still like an hour and a half drive, I think, for us to get to.
Yes.
That's just to keep with that thing. Dallas is 40 minutes from here.
Yeah.
Well, and sometimes VIP holds their events in Haltom City,
which is 2 hours from here.
Right.
And so, not a quick drive to get over there. And I wish I could go to the next one they're having, because they're going to have Jordan Grace and Tessa Blanchard there.
Yeah, they're having a card called Queen's Gambit, so it's nothing but women's matches. Very interested in it, but we'll just have to check out the winnings afterwards.
And while Dallas is like it's still the most local big city that's to us, and it's a little bit of a drive, but because Dallas is Dallas, there's always the bigger shows are putting on shows there.
Yeah.
Either just Raws or SmackDowns or pay-per-views.
Right. I mean, this last summer we had, the what was it, six weeks in a row of Collision. I think it was 5 or 6 weeks of Collision with a Ring of Honor show thrown in there. AEW comes back on a somewhat regular basis. Raw and SmackDown are regulars, especially Raw. Raw seems to be the more common one in the DFW area. We've had, we went to, me and him went to WrestleMania 32. Me and her went to WrestleMania 38 at Texas Stadium.
Which was a big deal, because we did get all kinds of shows. We never got WrestleMania until then, until Jerry built that building just for that.
Yeah.
Jerry Jones and the Cowboys.
we went to a Money in the Bank at the AAC. We went to the opening G1 Climax for the G1 Climax. We went to Money in the Bank at the AAC. Been to the place where we just saw Genesis. We've been to multiple Dynamites at. That's another thing too. I want to just double it before we get on to this.
Okay.
Tribalism is bull. AEW as an overall concept is not better than WWE, nor is WWE better an overall concept than TNA, and so on and so on. They're all just different flavors of wrestling. It's like liking ice cream. You can prefer chocolate. There ain't nothing wrong with vanilla. There ain't nothing wrong with strawberry.
What is that stuff?
I don't know where you're going.
Chocolate syrup on it.
Chocolate syrup. We have been to every kind of event. I have been literally, around the world. I got to see Naoto win the G1 over Omega, and still the greatest live match I've ever seen at the Sumo Hall in Tokyo. I've seen Cody Rhodes. I love my deal about Cody Rhodes. We got to meet Cody Rhodes at Ring of Honor. I got to see him at WrestleMania 32. I got to see him in Japan at, the G1 show. And then, of course, we got to see him return at WrestleMania to face Seth Rollins. We got to see him win the Royal Rumble in San Antonio. It's a big, cool thing to me that, Cody Rhodes always talked about, finishing the story. Well, I didn't get to be there when he finished the story, but I was at least a supporting character throughout the story.
Gordy's my family, Rhodes are his family. But, and along with that, because you saw one of the Omega and Okada matches, right?
No, not live.
I thought you did.
No, I did not get to see it live.
But Nato and
yeah,
Omega's awesome.
Who?
Yeah.
Honestly, while I love Okada,
yeah,
I like Naito better.
I do too.
He's a better character.
Totally. Naito's my kind of guy. I love Naito. But anyway, the guy just tosses, he didn't care. So, talking about the experience is that, okay, if you're listening to this, and I assume if you're listening to this, you're at least somewhat interested in wrestling, but if you're a real wrestling fan, particularly a WWE fan, save up your money, rob a bank, do whatever you got to do.
No, rob a bank.
Don't rob a bank. Don't
take a loan from a bank.
No, take a loan. Yeah, put out a loan that you can very easily pay back and whatever. But go to a WrestleMania. Do it. Because it is an experience like no other. Heck, the one we went to is generally on the internet considered a poor WrestleMania.
Yeah, 32 is not held in high regard by a lot of people.
I wouldn't give a darn about that.
Mm-hmm.
I would never trade that experience for anything because I was there. I got to be there, and the thing we didn't mention is that, and especially that bigger show, but still even the small show, is the experience of it. Just not just seeing the wrestling, not just the fans, but all of it. And me and him will never forget, because you hear pops on television, but when you're there, hearing the pops, when Stone Cold's music hit, that glass broke in Jerry's world, the Texas Cowboys, the A&T Stadium, Cowboys Stadium, the place erupted. It was the loudest thing I've ever heard my entire life to this day. I was deafened for a few moments, and then the other thing is that I got to go see a Raw, I believe. I'm pretty sure it was a Raw at Reunion Arena, which doesn't exist anymore. And I got to witness Undertaker's entrance live. Mm-hmm. And everything that Jim Ross and Jerry Lawler and all them said when they were on TV, whenever they would mention it during his, is absolutely true. Yep. It's just, even talking about it, after many, many years, I got goosebumps. Mm-hmm. That, you just can't beat that.
Yep. It's the greatest entrance in wrestling history.
Yes, it is.
Okay, now let's do our review.
Okay. So, the first to come out was the Adonis versus Jake.
Mm-hmm.
Something.
Jake something, yes.
I can't remember his last name.
I can't.
It was an open challenge, the TNA NXT crossover deal in the pre-show, which I believe is on YouTube if you want to go back and watch this. Really good match. You get to really see how athletic Ashante is. And, I have to admit, I'm not the world's greatest fan of his current character of the Loverboy deal, but it's starting to slowly grow on me. Kind of like moss, but it's growing. But Jake something is just a physical beast of a man. And he just towered over him. But it was a quick but fun, good, solid, get the crowd going match.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
What's our next match?
Frankie, I forget how you say his last name. Yes.
Or Kaz.
Yes, Kaz versus Leon.
Did you watch that on?
I have not.
Oh, you haven't watched. Okay, so it'll be us.
Okay.
But he's carrying something that's sort of like a money.
Yeah, he's got their trophy. It's called the Call Your Shot trophy.
Oh, okay.
Kind of looks like a cup to me.
Right.
not exactly like the one on NXT, but it's smaller.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's their equivalent of a Money in the Bank, or what's the poker chip that AEW
Yeah.
does?
He can cash it in.
Yeah, for a title shot at
Yeah.
any time.
Um,
It was a very, very basic, straightforward heel abusing a babyface match.
Yeah.
Kaz is one of the best to ever do it.
Mhm.
You know, so I can't imagine it would be bad.
Oh yeah, just jumping a little bit off topic here. Him and Christopher Daniels rank probably in the top 10 or 15 of my favorite tag teams in the history of the wrestling business, because they were just so good
They were very good.
at being jerks.
Yeah.
The next was a title shot. Moose versus Ace Austin.
Yeah. That match for me was really good, mainly because we got to see Ace Austin in MLW. I got to meet him, get his autograph. Again, another advantage is you can get people's autographs before it becomes expensive to get their autographs.
Yeah.
You know, seeing local shows.
Yes.
And my only problem with this match is I don't like Moose as the X Division champion. I know we've had big guys. I know Samoa Joe was X Division champion. But to me, X Division was built, founded, and the mold was broken with AJ Styles.
Mm-hmm.
And when you get too far from that mold, I'm not really happy. Moose being the X Division champion, it's almost like Andre being the world champion.
Mm-hmm.
It almost is a division killer.
Or the Brothers of Destruction as tag team.
As tag team champions, yes. It's kind of the same problem I have.
But he does play a great heel.
Oh, yeah.
Moose is great.
he's
No criticism
Yeah.
of Moose. I love Moose to death.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, being that division's champion,
Mm-hmm.
you know, because, and again, for a short time as a gimmick or a bit, fine, but
Mhm.
he's carrying it for a while. And Joe's different. I will say this because Joe could wrestle like that. He could wrestle like an X Division guy.
Yes.
And that's the difference.
Yeah, he was kind of the exception, but definitely not the archetype that you want anybody else trying to follow.
No.
But then again, not many people can follow Joe, to be really fair.
AEW just got 100 million times better because he's back on TV.
Moose won and retained his title
Yeah.
with a little help from his friends.
Yes. Yes. Next was Eric and Steve versus the System.
Tag match, which immediately started off of the interference.
Yes.
I don't know any of those people.
You don't know Eric Young?
Of course I know Eric Young. EY. Come on.
Which, by the way, I got to see him win a world title. I love pointing out world titles I got to see
Yeah.
live.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, he won the world title. I believe it was a cage match, now that I'm thinking about it, in a triple threat cage match at Slammiversary 12. Really great to see them. EY is a great performer.
So, and sometimes my brain does this, and if I'm right about
works.
this, it's like, yeah, every once in a while. At the SmackDown that you guys were at, which was Daniel Bryan's return, all that and the other, wasn't Sanity on that?
Yes.
So you got to see EY there.
Yep.
Mhm.
And I've seen EY quite a few times.
I thought the System worked well with Moose.
And to be fair to the System, I don't know them very well. I have not seen enough of them.
I didn't remember seeing them before,
Mm-hmm.
but they were great heels.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Really good match.
Mm-hmm. Next, we had another title match: Spitfire versus Ash and Heather
By Elegance.
Yes.
I do have to compliment the Elegance brand coming out with the almost Dallas Cowboy cheerleader outfits
Yeah.
Yes.
and the
Yes.
little pom poms.
Yes.
And they got a great entrance. The music and that
Mhm.
whole thing by Elegant, it sets them apart.
And the concierge.
Immediately when they come
Yes.
out, they said, you may not know them, but you know what they are.
Yes. Yes.
And Spitfire retained.
They
And a
did.
really good match. It was a really good women's tag team match.
I
And
want to mention that Dana Brooke is Ash by Elegant.
oh yeah, Dana Brooks. If you don't know, this
Where she
is
went.
Ash by
Where she
Elegance. And one thing I was going to say real quick, just tag it on here. NXT has the best women's division currently in professional wrestling. I don't think that's really up for debate.
Did you say NXT?
NXT.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
100%.
But TNA, longevity-wise, has had the best women's division in wrestling for almost 20 years now.
Maybe more than that.
I don't know, because TNA...
Certainly 20, yeah.
Yeah, I would say TNA didn't start much before
20.
20.
2 decades, that's good enough. Nobody matches the knockouts from TNA. Overall consistency and excellence than the knockouts division in TNA.
Mm-hmm. And we're fixing to follow up with another knockouts match.
Yep. Next was Tessa Blanchard versus Jordan Grace.
That was the match of the night for me. Of course, gotten to see Jordan Grace, who I'm a huge fan of.
Yes, I am a huge fan of Jordan Grace.
So far, it was a match for me, too. I haven't watched the whole thing, but I can't imagine
And
he's going to knock it off.
I definitely became a fan of Tessa's. She is phenomenal in that ring.
She is.
Yeah, there is only a handful of women, I would say, who are smoother in the ring than she is. And I do mean just a handful. And that we have our fourth commentator here trying to join us, Onyx, our
Onyx
kitty cat.
loves wrestling. But yes, I agree with that. She, like Charlotte Flair, who she of course has a connection to, because her dad and their dad are friends and colleagues, Four Horsemen and all that, this, that, and the other. And Tessa did an interview for their upcoming San Antonio live Impact show, which has already happened. And she mentioned not only that San Antonio was Blanchard country, that it's like Fritz von Erich ran this area, Joe Blanchard ran the San Antonio area, and of course Tully, his son, was one of his main stars, a heel. By the way, not like the Von Erichs. Tully was just so naturally heel, he couldn't make his own son a babyface. And his daughter's like that. And so just like how we see that Charlotte is a true chip off the old block, and the fact that she is so very excellent, and it's clear that she got what that gene from Rick, but she's went beyond it, carried it on. Tess is the same way with Tully.
Yeah.
And I love it. And then, but she mentioned, because they asked, because we're talking about the big upcoming, well, not upcoming, but the big new merger, or not merger, but connection with WWE and TNA. And they asked her, who in WWE would you like to face? Well, she's a friend, and you know each other for a long time, and whether it's working against each other or working together, Charlotte Flair.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the two of them in a match together, my gosh.
Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah, and I do want to take a second here to address the internet ranting and raving about the chant that was done by the crowd. Yes, they did that chant for maybe a minute. Which, to be fair, that crowd was really bad about getting chants going and keeping them going outside of TNA. It was about the only chant that
I was going to ask you a question about that since you're bringing it up.
Yes.
Did that seem like a very localized chant?
It was primarily from where we were sitting. It would actually be hard cam side to the right of the hard cam if you're watching it on TV, is where that chant originated from. And it really didn't get all the way around the arena.
The reason is that it reminds me of that NXT show we went to, and the one I said I almost picked a fight if I was younger or whatever. There was this group of guys, loud, just group of just certain guys that were over there in the bar section where I was standing, or this, that, and the other. And they were just doing all kinds of that. But one in particular is that when Roddy Strong come out, they just were crapping all over him. And just saying all these things, but they're the only ones that were doing it.
Yeah.
You know, and so sometimes when you hear stuff, somebody's picked up, so on and so forth, it isn't the majority of the fans that are doing it.
Right. And the thing is now, I'm not going to defend the things that Tessa has been accused of in the past and things like that, because too many people have accused her for it not to at least have some.
But there's smoke, there's fire.
Yeah, that. However, it's been several years, and she's obviously trying to make amends, and people grow, they mature, and they learn from mistakes. And I would have to think that Tessa, as smart as she is in the ring, as smart as she is on the mic, that her intelligence doesn't end there, and she has learned from those errors and those mistakes, and deserves an opportunity to prove that she has learned.
Yes. And clearly TNA is given her that, and she so far is doing a great job with it, because not only were her performance in the ring, but like I said, she was very professional in the interview. She was her and Joe Henry. It was her and Joe Henry, both of them doing that thing that professional wrestlers have to do, going and do these interviews with people who don't know nothing about wrestling, and asking dumb questions. But here's the thing. It's very important that everybody, sometimes we shorten it and we just say wrestling, this, that, and the other. The true name of this sport, even though for a long time it was kind of squashed by Vince a little bit, is professional wrestling. And here's the professional part of it. Jordan Grace has made no bones that she's no friend of Tessa Blanchard in real life. And you know, because she has friends as any other, and you know, Chelsea Green has been public about it. She is, but they worked together and did a heck of a match, didn't they? Because they're professionals. You don't have to like somebody to work well with them.
That's right.
And I was going to say, you want to tell a little story of the line of people while you were in line for the Joe Henry autograph, that while you were across from Tessa?
Well, yeah, there was, I mean, she had a huge line over there, or, you know, a pretty long line of people getting autographs, pictures, and just loving on her.
I was just referring to the guys ranting and raving about how pretty she was, and the women.
Oh yeah, the ones in my line, the guys were just enamored with how good looking she was, and some of the women were just, you know, giving her a stink eye.
That is a age-old thing that works. It will always work.
Yeah.
Yeah. And by the way, women's wrestling's real. For all those out there who still don't get it, whatever, it's the real deal, and it's getting over. And these women are not only draws and excellent and just as good as the men, they also, I already said that, but I was going to say that they're just as good as the men. They're talented. They're incredibly talented.
Yes.
They get better and better, and it's what was the word you used? It's blossoming.
Yes.
It's just exploding, and so that's good.
Okay, next was Mike Santana versus Josh Alexander in an I Quit match.
Yeah, that match was a lot better than I expected it to be. It's I've kind of established with him, you know, I'm not the biggest Santana fan.
Ortiz.
Ortiz. Yeah, he wasn't there. But you know, I'd actually gotten up to make a quick run to the facilities.
It's a bathroom match.
Yes. But as I'm getting up, he's coming down through the crowd like Jey Uso, and so I stop. You know, one, to make sure that I don't get in the way, and then two, just to.
Honestly, you missed out because we should have said no.
But you know, and I see his charisma. I can see why people like him. And that, so I mean, and I like Josh Alexander. Josh Alexander is really great in the ring. I would like to see a different character than the Lethal Weapon, or not? Is it Lethal Weapon? Yes, Lethal Weapon. Because that gimmick has not clicked with me, and I don't like the ear protecting look.
I don't like the ear protecting look, but it was so easy. The crowd was so behind Santana. I was right there with them.
Oh yeah, yeah. Though they did have the dumb chance of "you're bald" at one point. That was one of the chances they actually did get going.
Yeah.
Like, really? You figured that out?
Wow. There's no other bald wrestlers in there, or even really, really popular ones, or famous ones, or ones that made more money on T-shirts than anybody else.
But surprisingly, well, not surprisingly, but I mean, Josh is the one that said I quit. But at the end of that sentence, he said, as he shook Santana's hand, he said, I quit, and I quit TNA.
Yep. Which...
It's been addressed, I think, on the live deal, but I haven't actually seen that segment yet myself.
Well, he got kicked out of his faction.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, I've heard things that his contract was up and that he's probably going to leave TNA. Who knows where he'll go? But I think this is working that story because his contract doesn't completely go out until February.
Oh, okay.
But so
Okay.
they're basically making a story out of it.
So next was the Hardys versus the Rascals for a title.
I'm gonna let the Hardy Boy fan here handle most of this one.
So this was a great match. Obviously, the Rascals were excited to face them because they've
They're
looked
the
up.
Hardys.
They're the Hardys. They've looked up to them. They unfortunately came up short, but I didn't see anything wrong with the match at all. It was a great match by all four of them. But the Hardys did retain. If, I see a lot of potential in the Rascals. I think that the Hardys will drop it to them, just not yet.
Yeah, we were talking about that. It would probably be whatever the next big show is, the big pay-per-view.
Yeah. Slammiversary will be in New York. That's when I think
Probably
it may
that would
happen.
probably be.
And I may be wrong, but that would be my guesstimation.
Yeah.
One thing I want to say about the Hardys real quick is in respect to this match and to that team and what you said about them. We were there when the tag team scene was one of the hottest times, was the Hardys versus the Dudleys versus Edge and Christian. And there were other teams, and they were good too. And they were, but those three, because they had those TLC matches, and so on and so forth. All three, super famous. Everybody knows them. Me and him think the Dudleys are the greatest tag team of all time.
Oh, I think so too.
Okay, and Edge and Christian were just one of the best heel teams and funny heel teams of all time. And I'm a fan of all six of those men. But I have to confess, even though the Hardys aren't my favorite of those teams, more people emulate and copy them or and influenced by them than the other. I haven't seen any of the Dudleys.
No.
And I haven't seen Edge or Christian. I've seen some Edge or maybe even Christian, mainly Edge. But there's a lot of teams that have borrowed heavily from the Hardys.
Yes.
And the reason is that they were always the babyface, and they were kids, and they were putting those sleeves on, and they were doing the dance, and they were doing the whole thing, and that stuck with them. And
Yes.
And what I was going to say too is that one of the things I want to compliment TNA about, because one of the things I do get aggravated at with certain promotions is when they fail to do a good job of doing their one job. It's in their name, promoting. They promoted this match extremely well to the live crowd that was there. They talked up the fact that the reason why the Rascals are a team, why they are in wrestling, is because of the Hardys. And this was a dream match for them to get to face the Hardys for a tag title at a big event. And they really, I mean, by the time they were done with the promo, I actually wanted the Rascals to win that match because I really like the idea of that passing the torch kind of concept. Because honestly, I mean, I love Jeff, I love Matt, they're great, but their bump card is almost full. Jeff's probably over full. He's taking
actually, the way Matt's walking now, I think Matt's.
So at some point, I mean, that's the thing about wrestling. We can go back and watch The Undertaker for all the years that he was wrestling, but eventually you have to step away. Your body can't take it any longer. And you are not a good face of the company here. I'm going to sit you down here, buddy. So that passing of the torch is such a pivotal part of wrestling history, you know, and selfishly, I want to be there when those kind of things happen. So I like the idea of it happening when I'm live when I'm there.
Yes. Yes.
And the last thing I'll say about the Hardys, along with that, is that you know how they do those backstage videos or those stuff with their fun stuff, funny stuff, this, that, and the other. There was one they did a few years ago where they played the Hardys music, and they had asked wrestlers, and so several WWE superstars were back there doing Jeff Hardy.
Yes, yes,
I guess, so, influence is a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
yes. So next was the TNA knockouts. Masha versus Rosemary.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll let you speak on this one first.
This was the
I'm sorry, I want to go back to Jeff for a second, because this kind of ties into what he said about Tessa. We all know Jeff's problems, okay? And he's paying his prices for them, and this, that, and the other, so on and so forth. And whatever happens to him, if he went to jail, this, that, and the other, that's on him, and that's between him and the judge and whatever. And if companies are still willing to hire him and so on and so forth, because of that, whatever, that's whatever. Because, somebody may come back on me and say something different, but I've never heard Jeff ever hurt anybody in the ring.
No, he's very safe in the ring. The only person he's ever hurt in the ring, to my knowledge, is himself. Yes,
so,
by taking super risks.
right. Right.
But yes, Masha Slamovich defending the title against Rosemary in a Clockwork Orange Funhouse match, which is a long title.
Invented by Raven.
Yes, and they made a big deal about that it was invented by Raven.
One of my guys.
I want to say, first off, a huge, long-time Rosemary fan.
Mm-hmm.
She is the closest thing in the women's division in any company we've ever had to a Mankind or an Undertaker. Actually, almost kind of a merger of the two.
For the women.
For women.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
okay.
Yeah, that's what I said.
I would be.
Yeah. But, this match got violent very quickly. Of course, there's a little bit of issue there. Masha had the chain that went across. She was trying to take the chain around so she could whip Rosemary with it, and it wouldn't come undone for her at the beginning. And she had a little bit of problem getting it undone. But and then we had the I just drew a blank on her 2x4 with all the nails in it. It's got a name.
Oh, she called it something.
Yeah, it has a name.
I'm drawing a blank on it. That's going to drive me nuts now.
Yeah.
But
next to you know it.
but she swung it and missed Slamovich because she got out of the way. It hit the steps and it broke.
Yes.
No.
And just immediately improvised it. She just grabbed the business end of it and swung it, and she had the little cane. Slamovich did, and she swung it, and they hit, and it broke the cane. So then they're doing almost the Men in Tights little sword fights for the ramp.
Live wrestling, folks.
And it looked great. And both the ladies were sitting there basically having to ad-lib probably part of what they had planned out.
Yeah, and that's when you know they're really good. But when you see anything and you see wrestlers and then something goes wrong, so on and so forth, you can tell the seasoning of them. If they ride with it and it's fine, then okay, well they're there. But sometimes you'll see a younger wrestler, so on and so forth, and they'll be like a deer in headlights.
Yep, that happened. But when they got up onto the stage, this is the part I was going to mainly mention, and of course we do the thumbtack spot.
Of course.
And we have a ex-professional wrestler from the local scene that comes in here and buys comics regularly from me. And he talks about the one time he took a tack spot, and he said he'll never take another one no matter what.
I've heard that story too.
Yeah. Rosemary gets up after they've done, I think it was a suplex if I remember right, into the deal. And she gets up there and she's holding her hand up, and she's got like 4 or 5 tacks stuck in her hand. And she goes in and she's licking them and pulling them out and spitting them out,
So good.
kind of at the floor behind the last row of the crowd near the entrance ramp. And we start getting a chant, "You sick," can't say it on YouTube there, but you know
I think
you know where we're at with that. And
it ain't false.
and it's just so good, because she gets that reaction from the crowd, and she's been at this for a really long time. She pointed out, in the promo interview, that it's been 7 long years since she was the TNA Knockouts World Champion. And just think that Rosemary has been there for that long and hasn't held a title, or hadn't held the title. She may have had a tag title in the middle of that. I'm not sure. I'd have to go back and look.
But my thing about Rosemary is, I think I might think of somebody else later, whatever. But for right now, the way I bring Rosemary is the person that I'm most disappointed hasn't become a bigger star in a bigger company.
Yes, and she is really good in the ring. Her character work is off the charts, in my
Her
opinion.
look, again, we're going back to the look.
Mm-hmm.
You see Rosemary come out, you're not going to forget it. It's going to be memorable to you. Oh, that's different. Scary, or oh, that's cool, or whatever.
Yeah.
You're going to have a reaction to it.
Yeah. I mean, I think Rosemary is unique and different. The same way in AEW that Tony Storm is unique and different. I think it's great.
Gee, whatever happened to her? Go look on YouTube.
I was like, we watched that this morning, and yes, it's a timeless moment to do it.
That's right. And so just so you know, Masha retained.
And we had another NXT show. We forgot to mention that Axiom came out in the tag match, sat at ringside until they got ran into, and then they got ran off by security.
Yeah.
But also at the very end of this match, facing off with her, came out was Cora Jade.
Yes.
From NXT. Great to see her. Wish they gave her a mic in that moment.
I know. I was disappointed by that part because we couldn't hear what was being
she mouthed
said.
at Masha, but I even watched the TV footage. You can't tell on TV what she says.
So the last match was Nick versus Joe for the title.
Former Dolph Ziggler, for those who may not know.
Yes.
That's where he went. He's been the TNA champion for about a year, all over.
Yeah.
A little over a year now, I think.
And everybody was excited to see this one.
Yes.
I was believing.
This match was really good. And one thing I want to say about Joe, for the people out there who hate the WWE style, the way WWE does its wrestling, if you like Joe Hendrick, all he has done is done the WWE style on the independents and gotten himself over by doing that.
Hugely.
And that, I mean, the whole turning, smile,
all of it.
It's such a WWE thing.
He's a very WWE character. He really is.
And there's a reason why WWE does things the way they do it, because the vast majority of the time it works, and the attendance and the money and the fact that they conquered the territories, they put WCW eventually out of business. TNA has never gotten to the point where it was a serious threat. AEW honestly never got to the point where it was a serious threat, as much as they have tried. And it's just because this is a formula, and it's like Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola has a formula, and it works. And the only time it doesn't work is when they do something stupid.
And they have. Coca-Cola certainly did, and WWE did quite on.
Yes.
And sometimes they don't do the formula correctly.
Right.
You know, they'll have too short matches, or they don't push or pretend they're under. But that has improved ginormously since Triple H has taken over.
Yes.
And is doing, and HBK's, I think, doing a better job down in NXT, but he has a smaller,
he can focus better.
There's not as much irons in the fire as any other. But yeah, I mean, it works, and so why not? And the thing about Joe, because I've been watching him for a long time on the internet and all of his English stuff, so on and so forth. For a long time, you could almost say that Joe was a comedy act. But regardless, he was an act that was taken as the serious top, champion guy. Because he would come out and and that's another thing, he's incredibly talented. He would do songs live, making fun of the person he's about to wrestle. And of course, so he was always popular. Always, whenever he was on the show, he stole the show, this, that, and the other. Well, he's taken that, and he has now become the champion of third biggest wrestling company?
Third biggest company.
Third. And WWE loves him, and he's been on NXT, and he's going to eventually go and be a star in WWE because he fits it.
The crowd is going to explode because I'm willing to bet solid money that he is going to show up at the Royal Rumble. He ain't going to win it. He's not going to win it. There's a whole lot of not going to win the Rumble this year. A lot of big names and are not going to win the Rumble this year. But the explosion that's going to happen when he shows up with that crowd is going to be huge.
Yes. And if the guy I'm about to say doesn't win it either, because there's a good chance he might, but he might not. If he don't, Joe Hendry's the one pushed him over, and that's John Cena.
Yeah.
Oh,
because he's already starting to build this thing. He mentions John Cena a couple times now. He wants to face John Cena.
I'm glad you said the match, but one thing I also want to say about the match, this is where seeing something live is way different than seeing it on television. I've seen Dolph Ziggler, I don't know how many times. This is the first time I got to see Dolph Ziggler live up close. You know, as people know him. I'm using that name so people know him as Nick Nemeth in TNA.
You could always use his Spirit Squad.
No. That guy is so smooth in the ring.
Absolutely.
And that he is, I mean, a lot of people talk about how great people are in the ring and work rate and all this other stuff. As far as being able to do the moves, do them correctly, do them with the whatever opponent he's facing. It doesn't matter who he's facing.
Could be a broom.
I mean, it literally could be a broom, but I mean, he could go down to Texoma Pro and have a match with any of the guys there who are just trying to get going, just on their first few weeks, and Nick could have a heck of a match with any of them. He is that good. That's the reason why he became the gatekeeper. You know, much to a lot of people's chagrins in WWE, where he was the guy that if you were coming up to the main roster from NXT, your first feud 9 times out of 10, maybe 11 times out of 10, was with Dolph Ziggler. But it was because he didn't have bad matches with anybody. And with Joe, he had an amazing match because when you put somebody who's that smooth in the ring and that talented and can work with anybody, and you put him with somebody who can work and can do a great job, that's just going to be a damn good match.
Right. And the term that you used recently about some of the stuff we discussed about maybe a weakness in somebody's game, Dolph is a ring general.
Yes.
You know, and because he's had all the experience in the world. He's been in WWF, you know, for up and he was champ. So Joe's great, but he had a ring general in there to make certain that he's absolutely great. And most of y'all don't know me. Some of you probably will. He knows me. I'm going to pay Dolph the highest compliment I can. I compare him to on the same basic level, maybe a little below, but in that same conversation as Mr. Perfect Kurt Hennig.
Okay.
And I can't pay a higher compliment than that.
Yeah, I think they put on a great match. The people were into it. They were excited. And I think he did a great thing, you know, putting Joe over. And Joe, of course, won that title, and the crowd went crazy.
Yeah.
So they officially, you know, it has been working for a while now. They officially have a new face for the company.
Yeah.
Right in time for their sort of connection with WWE.
That's right.
Yeah.
And, you know, and one of the things I will say, too, is that crowd, which I saw today, was 4,000 something. I can't remember the exact number off the top of my head now. So it's one of the biggest crowds that TNA has had in a while. And while we stood in line out there to get our autographs and stuff, I found out that most of the people there, they knew one name on that card, and they came there to see that one name and these other people. And that was the Hardys. They were the reason why people were there. And why they had such a great crowd.
And to be fair, probably Jeff more than Matt.
Good, just that. But what I was going to say was, all those people who left, those 4,000 people now know who Joe Henrik is.
They sure do. They know who Joe Henry is. They know who Jordan Grace is. They know who Tessa Blanchard is. They left knowing more than when they got there.
Yes.
But they most certainly know Joe Henry.
Right. And that makes such a huge difference when you go see live events compared to watching on TV. Because, I mean, if I was to try to tell you what happened in little correctional in inspiration for the cat there.
Somebody's trying to interfere with our podcast.
If you try to tell me what happened on Raw 4 weeks ago or Dynamite 4 weeks ago, you could remember one or two matches. Even if you're a hardcore wrestling fan like me and my wife are. I mean, what was the main event 4 weeks ago? Do you know on Raw?
No.
I can tell you the last 2 weeks, but I can't afford it.
Right. But when you go see wrestling live, you will remember it forever and a day. I remember going to the ring with Jerry Lawler. I remember The Undertaker coming out at WrestleMania 32. I remember Shane McMahon coming off the top of the Hell in a Cell. I remember the reaction to Stone Cold Steve Austin coming out. I remember the action of Shawn Michaels coming out first of the three that came out there. I remember sitting there watching it when Xavier Woods was trying to get Stone Cold to dance. And I'm sitting going, this is not going to end well for you, Xavier. And it didn't. He got stunned out of his boots.
Yes, he did. And you're right about that, because that ties into the first times I went to the Sportatorium. Because I went to go see the Freebirds versus the Von Erichs. That was why I went. One time, stupidly, I brought a rebel battle flag with me. Amazingly, did not get into a fight. Because odds are I probably should have. And rooting for the Freebirds, this and the other. I was there for that, because that's what exploded the territory. But that wasn't the only thing on the show, was it? So the first time I went, that's when gorgeous Jimmy Garvin had arrived. He hadn't wrestled yet. He was doing the whole thing with him and Sunshine, and he was filming matches. And there was a tag team match with Freebirds versus Dave Von Erich and Iceman King Parsons. That was when Jimmy Garvin hit David Von Erich with the camera. And to this day, I think it had to have been a hard way. I just couldn't see where David cut himself. But of course, he was a bloody mess, and that was the end of the match. He was disqualified and all that and the other. I'll never forget it. Jimmy Garvin immediately became somebody. I know that guy. I'll know him forever. Yeah. I was there a few weeks later that year. I was there when Kamala appeared for the first time in the Sportatorium. Because I remember it was a big presentation, because they started playing the drums, that and the other, and they had those side doors that they did for loading and unloading stuff and so forth. They opened those, and here comes Friday, and I had never seen before, and there's Skandar, who I certainly knew very well, and then there was Kamala. I'm never going to forget that.
Yeah.
I get goosebumps now just talking about it.
Yeah. And it's just a thing that you get to see these great moments at live events, and of course, everybody there. Me and her will remember Joe winning the title for every day. I remember Eric Young winning the title. It's just I got a picture of her at WrestleMania 38. Her reaction, just absolute glee, because this woman here is one of the biggest Roman Reigns fans in existence.
Yes.
And she was just elated with him beating Brock and unifying the titles and becoming the undisputed champion.
Yeah, she'll take all the challenges. Anybody wants to say they're bigger. My money's on her.
And, it's just those key moments. My losing it when Cody Rhodes' music finally played at WrestleMania 38. Those are just things that just stick in your mind. Naoto holding up the cup at the G1. They're always an amazing thing. Ricochet at what's the NXT? No, that was the NXT show, I think, where he does the dive off the stage, flipping into the ring. Insanity. Yeah. I mean, on my best day in my youth, I couldn't have made that jump normally, much less doing a flip in it.
All that stuff all the time, But and here's the deal, just life is bittersweet. There's the opposite side of that. because you remember all that, but then you can look back and especially when you're getting older and this and other, you think of the things that you didn't get to see.
Yes.
I never got to see Roddy Piper live.
Right.
And I regret. I hate the fact that I didn't get to see Roddy Piper live. My favorite freaking wrestler of all time.
Mm-hmm.
And so it can go both ways. So if you do have an opportunity, if you have a favorite wrestler, this, that, and the other, go see him if you have a chance to do it, because you may not ever get that chance again.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
In my case, I never really had a chance to go see Roddy because
Most of the shows were up north or up east.
Over in the east, yeah.
Yeah, it's just a thing. But you didn't see Terry Gordy. You didn't see the Freebirds.
I got the Freebirds. I got to see the Von Erichs. I got to see Fritz.
I didn't get to see this person wrestle live, but I am glad that I was able to get Fritz Von Erich's autograph.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's a big deal. I got to see JBL.
Yeah.
When it was still Justin Hawk down in the World Sportatorium, whatever they were called.
Yeah, whatever organization was running at that time.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. So I mean, there are some that I have been able to see the extra point on and whatever, but yeah.
Yeah.
So I've got to see quite a bit. I'm not complaining at all. I'm just saying, even with that, there's sometimes like, well, that would have been good,
Yeah.
And it's different than like, I never got to see somebody that was dead. They're gonna see Gorgeous George, but that really wasn't possible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll straighten this up here quick since the cat's.
It's like
Helping
we're Batman villains in the Batman TV show.
Yeah, slightly crooked. And that.
Which is very appropriate for me.
I think you got it.
I'm King Tut.
But I was going to say the other thing too is that you also get for me, as I always say, actually I was telling him that this is what I was going to lead with, so I'm going to end with it here since we're getting to the end of it.
Okay.
Part of being a wrestling fan, 9 times out of 10, especially if you're a heel fan, is that you tend to like people who are braggadocious. If you're a babyface fan, you like your guy to be the toughest. You like your guys to be the best. Dusty Rhodes, the American Dream, Lex Luger, Sting.
I was doing Dusty Clay.
Oh, I thought you threw a name out
No,
there.
I can't help it. If I hear Dusty's name, I'm now Dan or whatever.
As a wrestling fan, one of the great things that you get to brag about and be braggadocious about is the events you've got to see, the people you've got to meet, the matches you've got to see live and in person. It's one thing to watch Cody, win, that great moment and finish a story and, watch it live on TV and get super excited. I guarantee you from experience on other things that it's nowhere near as cool as having been one of those, 70 or 80,000 people that got to see it live and in person at that stadium. Yep. So, there's lots of wrestling things I could brag about. Like you mentioned earlier, we were there at the SmackDown when Daniel Bryan got to become unretired. Yep. There's also the fans, match I didn't get to be there for when Daniel Bryan became retired. Sting's final match. I didn't get to see that, although I have got to see Sting wrestle. I've got to meet Sting in person at a convention. And also the legendary things that you've got to go to. We've been to the Sportatorium, which, is a legendary thing, and you can't do that anymore. It's not there. I've been to the Sumo Hall in Tokyo. As he mentioned before, going to WrestleMania, Royal Rumble. On our dockets of things to do is we're going to go to a SummerSlam. We're going to go to a Survivor Series so that we can finish off all of those. We're probably going to go to All In Texas. Be our first AEW actual pay-per-view, although we've been to some Dynamites. It's something as a fan that is yours. You've got to meet Thunder Rosa. You've got to see Timeless Tony Storm. You've got to see Magnus / Nick Aldis. I got to see Camille defend the title at NWA 75 in a great match. I also got to see her lose it the next night to Kinsey Page, who is a great little heel and that is really underappreciated. So
I could interview her.
I did.
On the Pro Wrestling Roundtable because she worked in the Centerville area where Richard and Matt they live, and so Richard was actually doing some of this stuff for them.
Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, it's just, to me, that's one of the things as a wrestling fan that you get to hold on to, is that you can actually have your own little checklist of, I've done this, I've done that, and only things that's comparable to that, and you don't get the long list of them, is if you're a Cowboy fan. We'll use that since it's our local team. You can get to go to a Cowboy game. You can get to go to multiple Cowboy games, but unless you get to go to the Cowboys at the Super Bowl, and that's not looking very likely, and watch them at a Super Bowl, you don't get that WrestleMania moment where you get to see your guy or your gal at the biggest show of the deal. The one that I compare it to is my friend Steve Pierce is a big NASCAR fan. NASCAR fans do have the option to go around and follow their racers at the various tracks. And the biggest one of all, the WrestleMania there, is at Daytona. It's one thing that I've told him. He is a NASCAR fan like nobody I've ever met before him. He needs to go to Daytona. It is the WrestleMania of NASCAR.
Yep.
And it'll be an experience. He's gone to Texas Stadium. He's gone to other tracks.
And he can say, "I've done it. I've been there."
It's a rite of passage that you can say.
Right.
We have all been to a WrestleMania, and if you haven't, go. If you can find any way potentially to do it, go to it.
Yeah, and because you were talking about the whole thing of the experiences that and the other, and I've had quite a few. Have I connected with particular wrestlers? But I got reminded one of my favorites happened at Texas Pro when Raven was there.
Yes. And
I got to meet Raven. I got to talk with Raven. I got a picture taken with Raven. I got Huckster and bought his T-shirt. Because I was wondering about size, and he just did. He's just okay. I bought it because I wasn't even for sure, and it did. It's tight, but it fits. And so I still have that shirt, and it's signed. But the thing that really was meaningful to me is that because I always related to that character. He was a comic book fan. He was, kind of the type of person that I am in a lot of ways. That dialed up as a heel, as that and the other, but he was cool. He was different. He was certainly his own thing in that time. We looked like brothers in that picture. We look a lot alike. I mean, same height, same build, same look. Yeah, so all the more I was like, yeah, that's me. It's like the way I always talk about Kevin Owens. How, of course, everybody in WWE, the one that's most like me in all respects is Kevin Owens.
All right, so we'll wrap it up here. But what I'd like to wrap it up with is we'll go around the table, starting with my wife. Favorite moment that you can think of off the top of your head, live, that you've been to?
That's easy for me. That's going to be when we were at WrestleMania 38, which you already mentioned, but that will be whenever Roman Reigns won against Brock Lesnar.
Mine is, in retrospect, WrestleMania 32, the triple threat match for the WWE Women's, or it's Divas Champion actually at the time, WWE Divas Championship, and between Charlotte Flair.
Well, it's the end of the Divas because it
That's
was the introduction.
But at the beginning, it was introduced before that, and there was Lita or Trish.
No, it was Lita.
It was Lita. That's right. Lita announced that the Diva era was over. Yay! And they introduced the new, brought back the WWE Women's Championship, and that we didn't know going in. We thought it was going to be for the Divas title between Charlotte Flair, Becky Lynch, and no, it wasn't. Yeah, it was Becky Lynch. I'm ruining my memory because I don't have a memory. Sasha Banks, Charlotte Flair, Becky Lynch, and for me it was the best match on the show by far. I loved because we were coming in, and of course the stadium was huge, one of the biggest in the world, and right there in the center, there's Roman and Trips over here, and Taker and Shane over here, but in the middle was the three women, and to me, it's like you presented it with, this is the show. This It wasn't an actual ending match, but it was a main event match.
Best match of the night.
And it was absolutely the best match of the night, and it was historical because it, not only, but they changed the title entirely. Signifying, basically, we were watching history, signifying that this is a change. We're taking female wrestling seriously again.
Right.
And these three women represent that, and they put on a hell of a show. And it's only built from there. So I was very happy that I got to see that live for sure.
Yes.
Mine, I almost want to pull him and pull a tie because it's one of his favorite things to do. And that. But mine has to be Cody Rhodes winning the Royal Rumble and being able to see that live. That's basically chapter 1 of the final book of the story was him winning his first shot at the undisputed Universal Championship that Roman Reigns had held at that point for, I think it was 900 and something days. I think at the time that he won the Royal Rumble. I'd have to pull up record books. We're not going to do that right now. But the Royal Rumble is my favorite match in wrestling.
Me too.
There's no match I like more than the Royal Rumble.
Me too.
And to see the guy who I haven't been willing to say yet that he's become my favorite wrestler, but he is on the verge of surpassing my longtime favorite wrestler, Ric Flair. And seeing him win the Royal Rumble, which is a insanity level accomplishment. I was talking earlier about this. Roman Reigns has only won one. The list of people who have won 2, I think, is 7 people long. And only one person has won 3. And so that is a great moment. And, it's my favorite event of all time. Is getting to see him win that. It was just amazing. And it's something I will never forget. Him sitting up there pointing at the WrestleMania sign and all the fireworks going off. And I don't have to remember necessarily because I do have it still locked in my video files. But
Yes.
Anyway, hope y'all have enjoyed our little conversation. This is our first little venue into doing this. We'll probably try to do this monthly.
Yeah. I liked it, pals.
I did too, pals.
I did too, pals.
And we'll catch y'all on the flip side.
Peace out.
Peace out.